Alas, there is time for ruminating. Alright, so it's History Boy here. Been doing some work and this and that, and been trying to keep the railroad tracks of inspiration going. And so to cap off the day, one that's been on my mind quite a bit, in terms of, well, Ruminations episodes, which have been ruminating, hence the title, is Tekken 2. Specifically, a remake of Tekken 2. Now, it seems that as far as the Tekken fan community, so to speak, goes, excuse me, most of the remakes that they've wanted, and I sort of agree. Like Tekken 3, for example, would be a good one. But then we got Tekken Bloodline, which is, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but you know. But then Tekken, the first game, which I kind of disagree with a little bit. It's like we've pretty much covered all we need to cover story wise. Enough in the first Tekken, maybe, but I mean, I basically half agree and half disagree. But one Tekken, one of the you know let's say the PS1 trilogy, because that's what they are. Yeah, the PS1 trilogy, Sony PS1 trilogy of the 90s Tekken games. Of course, Tekken 3 is in that category because that came out in, well, the console release came out in 1998, and the arcade was in 97-ish, for example. So it counts, even though it's based 19 years after the second game. But that's the whole thing with time skips in video games, TV, films, etc. But yeah, I'm digressing kind of a bit. So yeah, this is just kind of a main discussion of what would you like to see in those of you out there that may be fellow Tekken fans, some those of my subscribers out there, or those of you who have yet to subscribe but are coming across this video because algorithms, God knows what they do, algorithms. But damned if I know, as they used to say in the piratey days. Well, whatever. I'm just talking a bit of twaddle to give this a bit of runtime so it isn't a short, hopefully. Actually, no, it doesn't really matter if it is or it isn't. But I prefer that my videos aren't shorts. But then again, I get the most views on a lot of shorts. It goes back and forth a little bit. It's a bit like, why do things happen the way they do sometimes? But yeah, I think for example, me, what I'd like to see in a Tekken 2 remake is actual, because they had like rival battles and sub bosses in you know in, for example, the first Tekken, then Tekken 2. I mean, they had sub bosses in 3 technically, but those were like extra characters you could unlock, like Julian, Heihachi, and Kuma and Panda and Gunjack. all those people. And Gon and Anna and Gon, actually, this is actually a good point, good relevance to comparatively to toss both things in there. If that makes any sense. I'm a bit tired. Not so tired I can sleep, but it's getting there. I think it's because I've had a bit of a alert Neanderthal brain week, trying to do this and that. But enough about me, if anybody cares. I mean, people do care, but it's like it's time of the place kind of thing. But yeah, Gon's a guest character in Tekken 3. Tekken's first guest character, actually. And so, for example, I mean, I'm not massively keen on the overabundance of guest characters, but there are certain ones that fit in. It's like, for example, in Tekken 7, I don't think Negan fit in that well. I mean, he was a fun character, but I don't know, he just didn't fit. Geese, Geese was my go-to in the guest characters, because I've never really had the chance to play the Fatal Furies or the King of Fighters, even though I am sort of a fan of them. I never played them in my childhood like I did my Tekken games. I never came across them really until later on when I was just binging fighting game content. Samurai Showdown's a good one too, but I haven't played that either. And I aim to just like do one day a retro video game collection thing, which I just play. Yeah, speaking of King of Fighters and guest fighters, I think, and I've had this idea for a while. For example, I'm not sure if you all feel the same, but this is a Ruminations episode where you have, you know, where people. I encourage my. I encourage people to comment all the time anyway, but this might be actually a stealth. Yeah, I'll call this a stealth Knights of the Debate Table episode too. Come to think of it, because I encourage people to discuss almost like on a forum, but on a video comment section, where what they would like to see in a theoretical remake of a game. And the guest character things. I think I would like to see, keeping with the King of Fighters and SNK sort of other franchises kind of fighting game characters. Like we've already had Akuma in 7 and Geese Howard. Akuma being from Capcom, Gurki, also known as Gurki in the original Japan in Street Fighter, and Geese Howard from Fatal Fury and the King of Fighters. Oh, and the Art of Fighting 2 as well, which is a sort of a prequel in between. It's sort of Art of Fighting 2 is a prequel to the first Fatal Fury game, or at least it used to be, and then that got kind of retconned. But that's another story, I suppose. Potentially. So yeah, I'd like to see, for example, Ignis, the final boss from the King of Fighters 2001. I don't know when Tekken 2, for example, is supposed to be set. There used to be a wiki saying it used to be set in the 80s, but it's probably more like the modern day when it was released. So anywhere from 1995, 1996, or even 1997. Depending on the game's story. So this for Ignis, this could be like several years before the events of the tournament he holds, for example. So he could fit in, I reckon. just like how young Geese Howard a was the final boss or one of the bosses in, for example, the Art of Fighting 2, which is leading up to chronologically his appearance in the first Fatal Fury game with Terry Burgard and so on and so forth. Geese being the guy that killed his adopted dad. And, yeah, bit of lore there. But for example, going on with what else I'd like to see in Tekken 2, I'd like to see actual cutscenes rather than just cutting to the battle like they do in the original games, and they sort of cut that out in Tekken 7 a little bit. They rushed that. I think past Tekken 4 and 5, they sort of stopped with the interludes. I'd like to see interludes in the Tekken 2 remake, where, like, for example, in that game, you had Beck and Lay and Beck and Law, Marshall Law, his son being Forrest, who replaced him and debuted in 3, in 3, and then was in Tekken Tag, and then his dad came back because they decided to bring the original Law back. But Law Senior had his rivalry with Beck, who's Hwoarang's master. So, like, for example, I mean, they even have an interlude in 5 as well, if you play it as Beck in story mode, which is a little brief, but they acknowledge that the rivalry from 2 was still kind of there. So yeah, there'd be like interludes between Beck and Law, Lay and Bruce. So yeah, that's pretty much all I kind of have to say about Tekken 2. I mean, yeah, feel free to comment and like and subscribe and blah blah blah. And this has been a Ruminations episode by Liam. Finidata. Alas, there is time for ruminating. Hello, this is Lee the History Boy, and before we get on with, I mean, you've seen the intro to this, so this is another joint episode of Knights of the Debate Table and Ruminations. So this was originally, I was contemplating doing another vocal test for like another guest character kind of fan kind of idea, where I was going to do a kind of a voice collection vocal test of Chucky from Child's Play, but you take into account that 92% of his vocabulary is, swearing. I mean, I do want to, at some point, possibly get an income on by being a YouTuber, but it's a hobby, and all the same, it's not mutually exclusive. Whatever that strange saying is. But possibly, maybe it'll take longer in my case. I'm sort of bothered and not bothered at the same time. But the swearing thing, I already kind of pushed it a little bit, I suppose. If you want to go by related series of videos, the vocal test I did of Kano. I mean, yeah, I still have to suss out, work out, whatever, how to actually, bleep out my voice. But it's good that, when you turn it on silent, the automatic subtitles come up. That it does actually, get rid of the profanity. And like with Kano, and comparatively Kano and Chucky, they have they have sewer mouths basically. So it's instead this is kind of like a tangentially related. I learned tangentially off a overlooked original BBC series of Being Human, which I also covered on my first House of Faves episode about vampires. Spoiler alert, I suppose. Maybe a little bit. But yeah, this one. Yeah, and this one is about the guest characters, because I did 2 guest characters ideas for possible Mortal Kombat 2, at least Mortal Kombat 2, because it's still early days. NetherRealm are probably either just sort of thinking about developing it, or they haven't started yet. I don't really know about the executive side of it, seeing as they've put more time, I guess, in Warner. But I think NetherRealm and Warner Brothers are, they're part of the same thing. They're like one of the gaming offshoots of Warner Brothers. So then they did the series like the the Mortal Kombat Legends series with Scorpion and then Liu Kang, and they did like a trilogy almost. Yeah, one about Johnny Cage, which I can't remember the name of, and then of course the live action films with Cole Young and 500-year-old Scorpion and Sub-Zero, which I think that was actually a good twist on Scorpion. I think, as much as I'm not really a fan of the Conquest series, it was sort of almost like a little nod to the original Scorpion, where he was living 500 years before the the mortal before the games, and then of course there was the ancestor of the Sub-Zero, one of the ancestors of the Sub-Zero brothers in that, and Sub-Zero was just kind of living at the same time as Mortal Kombat movie 1, Warner Brothers, Hanzo Asashi, who was Cole Younger's ancestor. So I kind of liked that idea. And then the second one, spoiler alert, of course, Sub-Zero comes back as new. For those of you who are here, who are really really into the Mortal Kombat lore, and also the different timelines, I suppose. Which is, I think you should stay unique to the series. Soul Calibur kind of did it in number 6, and I wasn't really too much of a fan. It's not exactly incursion stuff like Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, I guess, or just 1 or so far. But I wasn't really too much of a fan. So I think you should just keep it exclusively to the Mortal Kombat series. It should be like a unique thing. Guest characters. Well, seeing as I mentioned that I was thinking about doing a vocal test about Chucky, and this applies to Mortal Kombat 2, 3, whatever, like theoretical sequels to, or of the new era, timeline of games. I mean, yeah, I did one of Proximus Caesar and a young Erden for guest characters for the theoretical guest characters for the next game or the one after. So yeah, I've always wanted to see Chucky in a Mortal Kombat game. Actually, I was thinking maybe, speaking of Soul Calibur, maybe that he could be in Soul Calibur, but they'd have to kind of turn him down. But speaking of Soul Calibur, seeing as Yoda was a guest character in 4, I imagine he'd be like kind of. It'd be sort of like how Yoda works in Soul Calibur 4, but also the reach and the having to kind of adapt to his height and stuff like that. He'd sort of almost be like Gon in Tekken 3, and he was the Tekken series' very first guest character because he's from a Japanese manga called Gon, which is he's like a little dinosaur living on an island causing mischief and so on and so forth. It was quite fun to play as. Oh yeah, Soul Calibur 2 on the GameCube had Link, and he wasn't like knee high, but he was notably shorter than most of the other characters, especially like Ivy, who for some reason, even in 1590 something, is like a 6'1" woman, which is quite funny if you fight against her. And I mean, she even towers over her father, Cervantes, whatever you pronounce it, like the Spanish possessed pirate. They could do really like cheeky stuff, like throw boomerangs at bombs, like fun to play as. And it was quite easy if you got the hang of him. The destined character of all the guest characters, destined battle was always Raphael, the musketeer type character. If you know your Soul Calibur lore, he was quite easy to fight Raphael with, because Raphael's a lot of his attacks relied on high kind of counter strikes, and he was quite lanky and tall as well. He could quite evade some of quite a few of his deadly techniques if you kind of have a look at, or you practice a lot with Link, which I kind of did when I were a kid. But yeah, Chucky, and then who else? Yeah, seeing as we've had Predator and Alien, but mostly this is about Predator, the Predator related things. Seeing as we had Predator in Mortal Kombat X, I was thinking, first off, I mean, this is an open kind of debate until I do kind of live episodes. But then again, I won't be able to kind of upload the image montage. At least I don't think so. Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, as Peter Griffin says. Would you like to see? And this is kind of inspired because I was listening to the Prey soundtrack as well, and I thought I might give Prey a go sometime based on KB's Z or Z's, don't know what your nationality, collection of creepiest scenes in 2020s films. I might put in them as a like a mentioned reference in the description. I really enjoyed the scene I've probably invested in so far with the feral predator punching a punching a fucking grizzly bear to death. Oh, I swore. Anyway, yeah. Too late to turn back, I guess. Because I could kind of edit my voice in there, but I'll have to kind of continue my editing skills. I'll work out a way to bleep voices. Anywho, just overlook that little F and Jeff there. Or would you rather see the main girl, Naru? Or would you like to see Birth? I'm thinking, would Birth fit in there? I suppose Birth would kind of be more relevant because they end up being adversaries through the entire film. Maybe the guest rivalry thing would be like a dialogue thing. Yeah, but even though the feral parrot would just roar because they don't really speak. Well, they do, but not in battle. The Yautja. Thoughts on Naru and or the feral predator from Prey. Also, who should I do next? Taka from the underrated Far Cry Primal. Do you think he'd fit in there? I don't think he doesn't have qualms about killing people. He's from very late Neolithic in I think it's supposed to be anywhere from Bulgaria to Romania to Hungary. The land is called Oros, which is supposed to be. It's said it's supposed to be Central Europe / Eurasia. It's kind of nondescript because why wouldn't it be? This is like 12,000 years ago, so place names change all the time, etc. etc. Speaking of etc. And this is kind of part of the title. How am I going to title this? Do you think? And this was kind of an idea that kind of came up. Some of these are kind of semi-random, like I said. The first guest character kind of vocal test I did was Proximus Caesar, and I think weirdly enough he would fit in Mortal Kombat's kind of style, but maybe Kevin Wendell Crumb / the Horde / the Beast, less so. Maybe. I suppose maybe he could fit it maybe a little bit. I'm thinking how would he fit with the the styles thing? Because the Beast personality is the one who fights the most. He's the one who murders and eats people. I'm not sure if I'm not sure. I can't remember if any of the other personalities fight actually. Dennis, maybe. Can't remember. And also, and seen as people have made fan kind of Mugen games of Killer Instinct versus Mortal Kombat. I think one of the two. I've got two characters in mind that would probably have no qualms about killing people. One more so, and they're kind of related as well. Fulgor being the one being his brother, and that's Chief Thunder, also known as Nematum, which is also the name of his theme in the Xbox One. Killer Instinct, but and also Fulgor, So again, this is an open thing. Where would you rather see full Killer Instinct characters between two, would you rather see Chief Thunder, provided that Nightwolf doesn't make some kind of a comeback anytime soon, or would you rather see Fulgor, which is kind of a bit like, he's a cyborg, kind of like, you know, Sector and Cyrex. Even though the current timeline ones aren't cyborgs now, they're basically just iron women. You know, discounting the cameo versions of them where they're like, they're the originals. And also, thinking about it, Turok, or Joseph Turok, or Joseph Fireseed, which I found out his name today, his original name. Turok's like a passed down kind of mantle thing, kind of like Sub-Zero, really, in a way. I think he kind of fit in there. Oh yeah, cycling back to Far Cry. I was thinking, and this, you know, this can be up for debate as well. Hence the title of this series, Vas Montenegro, or Montenegro. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't really play the games. I played a bit of Primal, and whichever one is the one where you burn down somebody's marijuana field while Ziggy Marley plays in the background. That's pretty funny. That might be the one with Vass. Actually, I can't remember. It's been quite a while since I sort of borrowed it from a friend and then gave it back. Yeah, so yeah, I suppose Vass could probably fit into the Mortal Kombat world, as could Taka, and also this is again because I've been listening to certain soundtracks and looking at certain clips, such as the unsettling episode Plague of Madness. Possibly, do you think? Because he'd have to kind of be animated in the Mortal Kombat styles. I wonder how he'd translate. Maybe not so well, but another idea. Before I get to the final one, maybe Spear from Primal. I wonder how he'd fit into the Mortal Kombat verse. Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe it was just a passing idea. But one that's been on my mind longer than Chucky is Judge Dredd. And also, you know, it's like a little, maybe a reference to, maybe a little nod to Rambo in Mortal Kombat 11. Would you like to hear Sylvester Stallone doing his voice, or would you like to hear Carl Urban doing his voice? And actually, Carl Urban doing the voice would be kind of funny, since we've had Homelander as a guest character in Mortal Kombat 1. I don't know if Homelander's actor actually does the voice. Maybe it's just an impression of it, but also, yeah, maybe someone doing like a Carl Urban Dredd impression with his kind of gravelly voice, low voice. I imagine he'd fit really well into Mortal Kombat verse, as did RoboCop, and I think they actually got Paul Weller to reprise the voice, unless it was just a really good impression, like the guy who did Darth Vader's voice in Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur 4 and Yoda in the same game, the Xbox version. The PS3 version had Darth Vader, but they were both voiced by the same guy, an impressionist who did you know, the impression of James Earl Jones and Frank Oz, respectively. Oh yeah, I forgot. Well, I remember just as I was waffling on about John Rambo and Dredd. That isn't in the last one. The last one is Dutch Schaefer, being the Predator. Predator, Predator and Prey. And it's, and this is like a little cheeky, I guess, kind of universe nod or resemblance, uncanny resemblance thing of, the Terminator looking exactly like Dutch Schaefer. So yeah, I was thinking. Speaking of, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I was thinking maybe Commando before that, but I thought no. Seeing as I was going to mention Predator verse things, or it's Alien versus Predator verse things, or whatever you want to put the collective whatever the series interconnected series down. If you get the gist, I think maybe. Seems we've had, Stallone as reprising John Rambo in one way or another, the voice. And I think, did Arnold Schwarzenegger return to do the voice of the Terminator in Mortal Kombat 11? I think he did, yeah. Because Stallone did for Rambo. And then we have, I'm just remembering now, in Mortal Kombat 1, we had Robert Patrick, of all people, doing the voice of the T-1000. So yeah, maybe, they can be bothered, asked, whatever. I don't think asked is that much of a swear word internationally, so, sod it, as they say. But would you like to see Dutch in either the next Mortal Kombat game or the one after that, and so on and so forth? This has been kind of a long one. So remember to like, subscribe, comment. I look forward to your views and your viewpoints. Cheers to that. To last time I checked, that one viewer who watched my index video. Might as well put that in the description too. I'll put the vocal test for Kano in there, as well as Odin and Proximus Caesar. Yeah, that's about it. That's all for now, and see you soon for the next video that I do. Those of you who are it depends on what's popular, most popular, what's least popular on my channel. But views are views. So I'll stop waffling on and get to whatever doing this. Alas, there is time for ruminating. Hey up, as they say. Whatever. I couldn't really decide how to do a greetings all kind of thing, opening thing. Anyway, it's time for another Ruminations episode, as you would have obviously guessed by the intro. A couple of subjects I've been thinking of, just sort of randomly, but not randomly. Well, kind of randomly. Anyway, so yeah, this is going to cover two subjects. Yeah, not X-Men as a whole, but whatever, we'll get to that. And Boardwalk Empire, sort of as a whole, and sort of focus on one character, I suppose. And what I mean by that is, well, you'll see or hear, because there's going to be an image montage that is repeating every now and then, whatever, as you hear my voice. That was my subpar Alexander Graham Bell impression and reference. Anyway, let's get a shift on, as the 13th Doctor says. So yeah, this first one is inspired by X-Men Origins Sabretooth. Sabretooth. Fucking F. Excuse my French, ignore that I said that. Maybe I will learn how to somehow bleep my swear words when I eventually get to be monetized, if and when that happens. Anywho, just forget I said that. The F word. Frig, whatever. Maybe I should have just said frig. But yeah, let's get to first X-Men Origins Sabretooth. Now, those of you who are comic book nerds out there, I kind of am. The odd sort of. I've read a pocket book called Venom Birth of a Monster, which connects some nutter in a ski mask called the Sin Eater, and eventually Eddie Brock, and on his way to becoming Venom. I won't spoil that for you, but that's a little kind of fun fact, little filler time kind of thing before I get to my points. And speaking of X-Men, I also watched one that involved Marvel Girl becoming some kind of lizard humanoid, dinosaur humanoid thing, and Storm goes and gets control, goes nuts, and creates a hurricane storm thing. Lucas Bishop, who those of you who are X-Men movie watchers would have seen him in X-Men Days of Future Past, and he's all there. He's got like a weird kind of buddy cop, if you will, relationship with Nightcrawler of all people. They're actually quite funny. I can't remember the name of the episode. Comic. It's where the X-Men are in the Savage Land for the 50th time. Basically where Sauron, the weird Greek mutant who absorbs electricity and turned into a pterosaur, lives. If you know your Marvel comics lore. So yeah, sorry for repeating myself. I go off on a bit of a roundabout tangent sometimes. Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting. Maybe it's an interesting idea, and maybe they could pull it off. Maybe it could be pulled off. Maybe like Netflix or something like that. I don't want Disney to go anywhere near Marvel stuff all the time. It's just because it might kind of turn it down. But I don't know. However, for example, Daredevil Born Again is streamed on Disney Plus, and that's violent as all get out as well, with Kingpin
cracking walnuts like melons, watermelons, for example. Then there's the bear on there, I suppose, and that's dark and stressful TV, but good all the same. And yeah, but I think I have an idea, kind of a well, this is why it's ruminations. I was ruminating over an idea. For example, what would you like to see in a young saber tooth series or mini series, kind of based off, I suppose, bits of the original comic, but also make it so it's part of the X-Men movies verse, if you will, maybe, or partly, or as a little nod. I was thinking maybe because, to be honest, Liev Schreiber would be too old by now. You know, and if you're familiar with the behind the scenes and left on the cutting room floor kind of stuff about Logan, he was supposed to have an appearance as a casino owner in Logan, which is a shame. It would have been nice to see 200 year old, 200 and something year old Sabretooth, kind of with a with a successful job and a managerial thing going on. That would have been nice, a little reference. They were thinking about doing that, but Schreiber, whatever, was busy filming Ray Donovan, which it conflicted with the schedule, whichever you prefer. But speaking of returning actors, I was thinking either, and feel free to comment, as I always invite people. This is why I don't make my videos for kids at all, ever, no matter what the subject, because I want people to comment and share the thoughts. So I was thinking maybe either he'd be the right age. Michael, I can't forget what his Michael Olsen, basically from X-Men Origins Wolverine. I would like to see him as the younger Sabretooth, but also maybe, I don't know if it could work. Maybe you have to kind of stubble him up a lot, but maybe, and that's a big maybe. Troye Sivan, who was obviously Kid Wolverine in the opening in X-Men Origins Wolverine, maybe as a young Victor Creed. But I was thinking Olsen. I think he deserves a comeback. Schreiber kind of sadly missed his comeback as Sabretooth. I'm not sure if he's actually in. No, it's Tyler Mane that returned in Deadpool and Wolverine, which was quite a nice. That was a nice featurette. Because I quite liked him in as cheesy as it was, the first X-Men film. It was intimidating, and the idea that Schreiber's Sabretooth is the very same one as him. He turns into that feral, kind of werewolf-eyed, whatever, beast-eyed, where there's nothing left of the man he used to be. Yeah, thinking that. So what do you think? Yeah, I'd like to know what you think. Anyway, right, and the second and final subject of the day is Boardwalk Empire. Specifically, to start off with, Richard Harrow. Would you like the idea of a mini series or something with him, in his World War II days, when he's gonna leave for World War II. Would you still want to have Jack Houston as him? I suppose it could work. No AI bilge whatsoever. No, I think it actually could work despite him being like 40 something now because of the mask and everything like that and the glasses. Um, Maybe he could pull it off before he gets disfigured. Anyway, would you like to see that as a video game too? Maybe segments of him shooting people, or would you like? Or I was thinking also a a just a Boardwalk Empire video game in general. And what the image I use in there is from somebody else's YouTube video, where it's where they actually want a kind of a concept. They have a sort of a concept idea of Boardwalk Empire using Grand Theft Auto 5 mods. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to see it. I mean, it's an HBO show, and the reason I say HBO, make any reference to that is, you know, I don't know if anybody remembers it, but there was that not very popular game on PS2 called sorry for umming and erring. I sound like a Texas cheerleader or some kind of valley girl or whatever. I'm doing it again. It's like going like like I'm like Vicky Pollard over here. If anybody knows Little Britain, you know. But yeah, would you? Yeah, getting off track because I'm kind of rushing through this because of recording time and data and blah de blah de blah. There was the Sopranos Road to Respect where it focused on Pussy Bompensero's illegitimate son tracking down the crew, the Tony's crew, and rising up through the ranks. So I think that, in that sense, the Boardwalk Empire game could work. Probably be more popular than the Sopranos game. So anyway, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll love you lot, and leave you lot. Ta-ta for now.
Hello there, this is History Boy, and I've had the inspiration to do another Ruminations video, and that is on. This is gonna be instead of doing multiple subjects, like I did with the Kingdom of Heaven thing and Ben 10 and all that kind of stuff. And the other one with Mortal Kombat and God of War and all those. This one, I mean, with this is kind of inspired partly because of the new one coming out. Requiem, aka RE9 or Biohazard 9. And I was thinking to start off with talk about some two overlooked games, part of a series actually. And actually, before I get into it, I didn't realize the original. I never played it. The original Code Veronica game that was also partly featured on as the one of the second
revisited storyline in Darkside Chronicles. I didn't realize until looking up image sources and all that jazz that that was a gun survivor game. So it's a trilogy actually. Yeah, you have Gun Survivor with the sicker doctor that tries to get a chemical from teenagers, a specific fear chemical from teenagers' brains, and then you have my personal. I've never played these, but I kind of want to. You know, maybe I'll start a collection when I have the time and the money and the ability to further seek out niche things that a niche over here basically, like collector's editions stuff. Because I want to get back into Resident Evil. Last one I last one I played. I mean, I haven't even played Village or Shadows of Rose or Resident Evil 4 remake or 3 remake or 2. I mean, I've seen gameplay and stuff like that, but yeah, the Gun Survivor ones, in particular, Dead Aim. That was like the coolest one to me. It still is, and I think that deserves more love and that out of the light gun games. And actually, I think out of, I mean, technically, yeah, Code Veronica's already been done through Darkside Chronicles on what was it, GameCube or the Wii? Yeah, the Wii. Yeah, the original RE1 remake was GameCube. Uh, I don't think it was an exclusive. I'm not sure, but I think that deserves a remake. So yeah, first kind of putting it out there, kind of question I'm putting out there is, if like me you wanted to see RE Dead Aim remade, would you keep the aesthetic of the light gun stuff where you enter boss battles and you just you shoot, you stand there and shoot basically. I mean, they didn't always do it. I think they didn't do that all the time. Like if you were fighting Pluto, I think if you if you fought Pluto and all the times you fought Morpheus Duval, um, you could switch because for example, with Morpheus's first battle, you you ran away. You could choose to shoot him instead of delay him, but they didn't really do anything. But most of that was running, and I think the final bit where he's like his mutation gets out of control, it's pretty much a light gun battle of, but you were kind of running at the same time from what I remember, from what I sort of remember from watching gameplay stuff. So what the fuck do I know? um, but yeah, it had quite a. To me, it was quite interesting because it veered from like people from like, as much as I like Leon way a lot more over Chris. Um, it's funny with Leon, he has like, yeah, yeah, with Leon's stuff, he has like the more quirky, interesting personality, but as far as for example, the kind of things Chris ends up fighting and being a soldier and stuff later on and part of the Hound Wolf squad, which I'll address as well as part of this video. The situations Chris finds himself in seem to be more enthralling, you know, especially seeing as as he reappeared as the Hound Wolf squadron leader in seven, in seven and village, um, and the Hound Wolf squad had their little kind of DLC thing where you were fighting one of the Urias, priests, Hammer brothers, basically. Um, and yeah, so yeah, kind of digressing a little bit. I'll get back onto the since I've mentioned it now. I'll get back onto the stuff with Chris Redfield and all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, what would you like to see if there was a remake of Dead Aim? How would you go about, you know, what would you change? Would you keep certain aesthetics? I, for one, would take the light gun stuff out of it. That seems a bit like that's like a bygone thing anyway. I'm not sure people really caught on much in terms of sales, um, and the whole survival horror thing. And the survival horror part of Dead Aim is really well done with the going through the ship and the sewers and the mutated, like the torpedo kids, the the T virus, TG virus mutated fish embryo baby things in sewers. Those were really well done. Where you had to like sneak around and stuff like that. But yeah, that's it for the RE Dead Aim stuff. Well, actually, how would you? Because yeah, no. How would you go about altering the script, for example? Because it's quite charming in its way, but still quite stilted in its way. Not bad. It's not a bad thing. It's just like it wouldn't. It seemed very. It seemed very kind of. It seemed kind of retro now, seeing as it is a 20-year-old game, but the voice acting at the time and the translating and the translating from the Japanese stuff, that was kind of a newer thing still. So like how Leon and Claire and Birkin, um, and Chief Irons, they all they they all that they had that kind of way of speaking in kind of kind of, I'd say, yeah, stilted kind of way of speaking, where it was like directly translated from the original Japanese script when it was biohazard as they call it over there. But then also yeah, Dark Side Chronicles. Yeah, they covered first bit of Dark Side Chronicles was the RE2 bit with Leon and Claire, and they brought back. I liked that they brought back Matthew Mercer from 4 to voice Leon, even though chronologically that was before that one, which was quite well done. I think. I mean, I like that voice. I mean, I like not Matthew Mercer. That's 6. There's a similar name. The guy in the original 4 is called. His last name is Mercier, but then you have Matthew Mercer who voiced him since from RE6 and then the animated movies. Which I really like his voice too. There's not really a bad Leon voice apart from the kind of awkward, like I say, uh, kind of stilted acting. And I keep saying stilted. That's the only way I can describe it. Where yeah, it was directly translated, and it's what they kind of had to work with. But then the voice acting got better. With the building it back up from the ground kind of thing in Dark Side Chronicles, and then even more so in the RE2 remake. But yeah, with the whole Dead Aim thing, I imagine in my mind, I wouldn't exactly know what to concretely think about how I would set out the dialogue, but um, I think it'd have to be a bit less, for lack of a better word, goofy. You know, like Bruce McGivern, the main protagonist, has sort of his kind of cheeky, kind of Bond-esque one-liners that are kind of nerdy, but they work. But then there's a load of them, so I think you'd have to kind of turn that down a bit. For example, um, seeing Morpheus Duval would be interesting too, as well. I think it was more. In fact, I think in the game, to me, he was more interesting before he ended up a actual literal monster. Like he was, you know, yeah. I think he was actually the. To me, he was like he was the best acted voice in that game to me. I mean, I really liked him as a villain. So I mean, if a Dead Aim remake ever did happen, I just immediately like to love to see the details of who they would cast as Duvall. Maybe cast me, Capcom. I don't show off, but I'm sort of good at voices and stuff like that. Maybe you know what? Maybe just you know, cast me as Bruce. Um, I'll try not to roll my eyes so much. Um, I think Bruce has a bit of a drawl. Slightly exaggerated because it was originally voiced by a Hindu Canadian, basically doing like a, I don't know where he's supposed to be from. Let's say Florida-ish, kind of. Maybe he's from Texas. Who knows? But he does a bit of a drawl. I realise that Canadians have a drawl, but sometimes. But yeah, I think he's supposed to be more American. Like, you know, he sounds like a gunslinger, basically. Gunslinger, not gunk. If anybody kind of heard that during the recording, I have a bit of a cold. Yeah, moving on to Chris, or the further work of Chris Redfield. Kind of relates to the Shadows of Rose thing, which I was never asked with. But I liked that they actually did a time jump where she's like 21 or something. I think Chris is supposed to be mentioned to be still active. So yeah, that'd be a good idea for a game too. Either Chris like a Shadows of Rose acknowledged, nodded kind of Chris Redfield game where he's getting to be a kind of an old soldier. Because I worked it out once, I think he would be like 67 at that point. Yeah, how old's he supposed to be? I think on the wiki it said his birth date was around 1973, and Village is supposed to be. When is it supposed to be? 2020? Or is it 2025? So it's anywhere from. He's not old, but he's like at the oldest. He's like. I mean, I suppose in Namco's case, I suppose if they can have Voldo from Soul Calibur be 67 years old in the early 17th century and do his twists and and contortionist stuff. I mean, I know he's Italian and they have stereotypically long lives and dietary stuff, and it's like it's a weird mixture of healthy and blah blah blah. But if them, oh for Christ's sake, oh excuse me, maybe I'm getting a virus. It'd be nice if I got some kind of the virus that Albert Wesker got. You know, I'd have the cool eyes at least, and I've already You know, got the kind of glasses anyway, and I like to do a good finger tenting pose. You know, where he's sat in his lab chair, scheming. Um, but yeah, where was I going there? Where was I going? Where was I going? Back to it. Back to it. Back to it. Um, yeah, Chris. I reckon, yeah. If it can do that, if Namco can do that, where Volder's still very much active, even though he's like, it'd be like the equivalent of a like 110-year-old man during his time generally. Then they can have Chris, who will be, to quote TV tropes, dented iron, I guess, but he'd probably still be able to take care of business and lead the squad, or be like a, you know, or like do like a semi de facto leader thing if someone else steps up. Um, so yeah, that's for yeah, related to the Shadows of Rose thing and Chris and Village and all that kind of stuff. Um, would you would you like to see? I'm kind of in two minds myself. Would you like to see a a kind of a Hound Wolf Squad prequel game where, or slash Neo? I think it was part of Neo Umbrella. Yeah, it was part of Neo Umbrella. Like that, it's like they set up their own thing as like an anti-Umbrella thing, even though Umbrella was finished with when Wesker croaked it in 5, and then his sister Alex um, kind of set up her own thing in Revelations 2, which aka is aka the latest Resident Evil game I've actually played. Um, so yeah, would you like to see? And I'd appreciate comments as well, because this is sort of a discussion thing. No, and this is a discussion. This is a potential open, you know, debate, kind of almost debate kind of thing, where would you rather see in regards to Chris and the is basically later adventures and later jobs, would you like to see a sort of intermediate prequel thing where he's setting up or slash joining the Hound Wolf Squad, or would you like to see him during the um basically doing his thing while Shadows of Rose is going on, where he's like potentially gruff looking and older, but not probably not too much. He'd be like, he'd probably have more of a grit, like more of a beard. He'd have like more of a Keanu type beard to me, but whiter. He's whiter, and uh, whiter hair in places, I guess. Um, so yeah, for Chris to leave off with it, end this episode. Um, further adventures of Chris Redfield, or further expeditions of Chris Redfield, either either um, him joining the Hound Wolf Squad for the first time after Wesker, bit it basically, out, and or um, him still operating when Shadows of Rose and is going on. So yeah, this was just a kind of a yeah, this was like a these are all, like, you know maybe I should call them playlist mullings, more like, mulling it over. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So remember to like, subscribe, comment. Yeah, especially comment. That's kind of the point of these. But just do it if you feel like it. If anyone, you know, I do get comments and stuff anyway. But you know, anyway, I always encourage comments.
So this is History Boy signing off.
Time to die. Playtime. May you sleep for eternity!
Good evening, how do? This is History Boy, and seeing as I did a Ruminations video last night, I thought I'd do one before moving on to back onto a subject that I haven't really done for a while. You'll see what that is, or what they are. Several videos. Anyway, this one is for the fighting game fans, specifically Soul Calibur. And if you're into like the lore and stuff like that, a little bit like I am, I'm not so much. I'm more into Tekken and Mortal Kombat lore and all that kind of stuff. But there's some interesting stuff in it, like, you know, from Soul Calibur 2 to 3, and, well, 6, they kind of connect, with the previous wielders of Soul Edge. Necrid in Soul Calibur 2, the guest fighter that never made an appearance because Todd McFarlane, who designed the characters for the Spawn comic series, just kept the rights to the character, didn't really give them over. Hence why he never appeared in any other sequels. The reason he looked like that is because he was mutated by Soul Edge. Then you have in Soul Edge / Soul Blade, Cervantes, the Spanish pirate, which they kind of delve more into the story there in the kind of soft reboot. I guess it's soft reboot in Soul Calibur 6, and also in Soul Calibur 6 they delve more into Zasalamel, who debuted in Soul Calibur 3 and was mentioned to have been one of the wielders as well. It's mentioned that 1,000 years before his Soul Chronicle in Soul Calibur 6 that he was a wielder. So this is sort of like a game idea I've been ruminating over, which would be quite interesting. But I wonder what you call it. I think I think maybe what I call it is either Soul Calibur 0, Soul Blade 0, maybe Soul Edge 0, or because the weapon shapeshifts and he uses a scythe, maybe Soul Scythe or something like that, where it could be like a sub-boss or the final boss. So, yeah, that was my short Ruminations episode about a potential game idea, maybe how it would play out. What do you think? I'd appreciate comments and all that. Any people on any subscribers that are here already on my channel that are into fighting games, adventure fighting games, that kind of thing. Hit me up in the comment section, so to speak. So, yeah, I'll be moving on to the next videos while I still have sort of enough daylight to for you to see what I'm recording. So
in this instance, it didn't really matter because I'm not really showing you anything. But I'm out and about. So yeah, there's that. So see you all later.